Have you ever met someone who was absolutely, unshakably certain they were brilliant at something, and were spectacularly, painfully wrong? Of course you have. We all have. The coworker who gives unsolicited advice on everything. The guy at the pub who has strong opinions on geopolitics despite never having read a newspaper. The person in every meeting who talks the most and knows the least. Here's the uncomfortable part. That person? At some point in your life, in some subject, in some room, that person was you. And the truly unsettling thing is, you probably didn't know it at the time. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it says something deeply uncomfortable about how the human brain measures its own competence. In 1999, psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger ran a series of experiments at Cornell University. They tested participants on logic, grammar, and humor, then asked each person to estimate how well they'd performed compared to everyone else in the room. The results were striking. The people who scored in the bottom quarter consistently believed they'd done significantly average. Not slightly above average, way above average. They were so unskilled in the subject that they lacked the very ability needed to recognize how unskilled they were. In other words, you need a certain level of competence just to accurately judge your own incompetence. Ignorance is self-concealing. It comes with its own built-in confidence boost, completely free of charge. But here's the part people always get wrong about Dunning-Kruger, because this finding gets misrepresented almost everywhere. Most people describe it as simply, stupid people think they're smart. That's not quite right, and it misses the more personal and more humbling half of the result. Because Dunning and Kruger also found something important at the other end of the scale. The people who scored highest consistently underestimated themselves. They assumed the things that came easily to them came easily to everyone else too. They thought they were average when they were genuinely exceptional. So the effect cuts both ways. Low competence inflates confidence. High competence quietly deflates it. And most of us are somewhere in the messy middle, miscalibrated in ways we genuinely can't see. Think about the last time you learned something new, a language, an instrument, a sport. At the very beginning, you probably felt a surge of confidence. You learned a few chords and thought, I could actually do this. You ran your first kilometer and started Googling marathons. That early peak of confidence has a name, Mount Stupid. You know just enough to feel capable, but nowhere near enough to understand what you don't know yet. Then reality hits. You discover how deep the subject actually goes, entire layers you didn't even know existed. Your confidence craters. This is the valley of despair, and it's where most people give up, convinced they're simply not good enough. The people who push through the valley eventually reach genuine competence. And ironically, the more genuinely competent they become, the more acutely aware they are of their own gaps. Expertise arrives with humility. Ignorance arrives with certainty. Now think about every domain where confident incompetence causes real damage. Politicians legislating on topics they fundamentally don't understand. Managers making high-stakes decisions in fields they've never actually worked in. People confidently rejecting medical advice because 30 minutes online made them certain they know better than the doctor. Confident wrongness is remarkably loud. Quiet expertise often struggles to be heard over it. So here's the thought to carry with you. The next time you feel completely certain about something, certain enough that you're not even pausing to consider the possibility of being wrong, that certainty itself is worth a second look. Genuine expertise rarely feels like certainty. It feels like awareness. Awareness of complexity, of how much remains unknown, of how many ways things could go wrong that haven't been considered yet. The most knowledgeable people in almost any room are usually the ones asking the most questions. And the person with all the answers? They might just be standing on top of Mount Stupid, enjoying the view.